Good morning.
How are you?
Outstanding.
This.
Ves abajo para...
All right.
Good morning, Policy Committee members. Good morning, everyone. If you are here in the room, you're fine to keep milling about. I just wanted to make an announcement for those who are joining us remotely. We are trying to establish a quorum. So if you would do us the favor, if you're calling in and you are not at a notice location, please do find a way to get yourself to a notice location because we are unable to count you for the quorum if that is a circumstance, and we are unable to allow you to participate as a participating member of the Joint Policy Committee meeting this morning. Also, please identify yourself once we go live if you are on the phone and confirm that you are at a notice location. We will let those folks know when we've established a quorum momentarily. Thank you so much.
Should disappear.
It's doing a roll down.
One more housekeeping request, please. If you are joining by Zoom and you have your city's name as your identifier for your Zoom, please do include your individual names, the members of the policy committees who are present with us this morning so that the clerk can note who is here, both for your own attendance purposes and for our record keeping and also our quorum keeping. So thank you very much.
Okay, good morning. Today is Thursday, March 7th, 2024. Prior to calling the meeting to order, I'd like to ask members who are calling in by phone to identify themselves. And as a reminder to members of this body attending remotely but not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. I'll now call the Joint Policy Committee meeting to order and ask Ray Marquez to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, we're holding this meeting in compliance with the Brown Act rules relating to telephonic and video conference meetings. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment are provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. Just a reminder to reduce noise, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. I will now open the public comment period of this meeting. This is time for members of the public to offer a comment for matters that are within the SCAG's jurisdiction but not listed on the agenda. Staff have received any written comments after the deadline of 5 p.m. Wednesday, March 6th.
Good morning, Mr. President. We have no such comments received.
No comments. Okay. I'll now close the public comment period. I see no need to review or prioritize agenda items. So we'll go to action item 1, the Connect SoCal 2024 recommendations to approve the final 2024 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy, or ITP-SCS. SCAG leads the region in bridging both state and federal priorities with our local plan. This requires balancing various needs with the vision for the future. Connect SoCal 2024 is 4 years in the making. We have many discussions and presentations along the way. At this time, as the plan moves forward, SCAG will support local government in implementing various elements of the plan through funding administration, funding, research, and resources. This item will take public comments following the presentation. And I'll call on Komi Asiji, Executive Director, to introduce the presentation. He will then call on staff to present.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, JPC members. Good to have you all here today. You will recall last September, this body met to recommend that the Regional Council approve the draft release of the draft plan that's in front of you today for release for public review and comments. And that occurred in November of last year. In fact, November 2nd of last year. Today, staff is going to present the comments received during the draft release period and outline changes that are underway to make the final proposed plan. We are confident in moving forward with the final proposed plan, yet we also acknowledge and welcome discussion on issues that were raised that could not be directly addressed in the plan itself. As has been said before, the anticipated adoption of this plan is a milestone, not a finish line. We expect that as we move forward from adoption of the plan next month, by the Regional Council, that there will be more work to be done. This plan will keep the region moving forward, but there is still more work to be done. With that, Mr. President.
Yes.
We're going to pass it on to Sarah Dominguez, who has just, I don't know what words to use, Sarah, but I think when I say ably led, it seems like it's shipping the work that you all have done, but Sarah has been the lead on this plan, and it's a pleasure to introduce her to talk through what we've gotten so far in terms of comments. Sarah?
Thank you, Kome. And it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for those of you joining in person and remotely. It's really my pleasure to get to share with you today the feedback that we received on the draft plan and discuss the changes that staff are making probably as we speak to update and do all the revised modeling. So as Kome mentioned, on November 2nd, we released the draft plan for public review and comment, and that kicked off a 71-day comment period, which closed on January 12th. And since then, staff have read and responded to each and every one of the over 1,800 individual comments, which I'll discuss a little bit further. Oh, having trouble advancing the slides. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So we are close to finalizing our model reruns and outputs and updating the proposed plan documents, which will be available in advance of the April 4th Regional Council meeting. So today I'm going to provide a summary of what we heard and how we're revising the plan in order to respond to all the comments and finalize the plan. But I do want to acknowledge, as Kwame mentioned, that there were some commenters and comments that raised issues or asked questions beyond what we could feasibly address in this plan. So those will be topics for future discussion. Those comments spoke to inherent tensions and challenges within regional planning that we'll be highlighting. And then after that, I'll turn it to Karen Calderon to provide an overview of the PIR, and we'll close it out with next steps before seeking action on the PIR and plan for Regional Council next month. So I always like to start with an overview and reminder. I know that we have a couple of new members. So for the basics, Connect SoCal is SCAG's branded name for our statutorily required regional transportation plan and sustainable communities strategy. This is something that we must adopt and update every 4 years, and with which we must meet a number of state and federal requirements in order to remain eligible for critical funding and project approvals. Now, I do want to note on our state requirements, based on the modeling that has been completed since the release of this staff report, I can confirm that the proposed final plan is still meeting our GHG emission reduction target as required by CARB, which is a 19% per capita reduction by 2035. And in sum, Connect SoCal looks 20 years into the future to outline our transportation investments, our planned land use, and a suite of policies, strategies, and programs that'll help us reach our goals. But as Kwame mentioned, this plan adoption is a milestone, not a finish line. And while we're nearing adoption for Connect SoCal 2024, regional planning is very much a continuous cycle and process. This plan has benefited from insights and direction from stakeholders and representatives of transportation agencies, local jurisdictions, and other stakeholders who participated in SCAG's working groups, and also provided formal input on SCAG's the Connect SoCal 2024 project list and forecasted development pattern. Then we had 3 special subcommittees this cycle who were able to explore deeper policy issues that provided guidance in the plan. And the policy committees and regional council saw over 100 staff reports on various aspects of plan policy and plan development. And then at key stages, we engaged the public and community-based organizations on development of the plan. So during the draft review and comment period from November to January, we held 15 elected official briefings and 3 public hearings. And really this public comment period is to share our draft and let stakeholders see this work come together and help us make sure that we're getting everything right. And so who did we hear from? We received slightly fewer letters for this cycle than we did in 2020, but we did hear from a range of organizations and agencies and 28 individuals. So in total, these letters and submissions included over 1,800 unique comments to which staff are responding. So what did these comments say? The majority of comments requested minor changes, clarifications to text in the plan, which we are currently applying. There were some comments that were able to be answered within the response itself, and then some which then did not necessitate any change to the plan. There were also requests for projects changes that I'll discuss, and then suggestions for additional content or subject discussion, some of which we're able to apply and some of which we're noting for topics for future discussion. For the individual comments that we received, there were 2 key themes that have been primarily addressed in the response to the comment, but I do want to highlight just for your knowledge. The first was that there seemed to be confusion about the applicability of CARB's 2022 scoping plan target. That is a target to reduce VMT by 25% by 2030. That is not SCAG's target. SCAG has a GHG emission reduction target of the 19% by 2035 that I mentioned. So, a different variable, a different timeline, and that's not SCAG's target. But I do want to highlight for you that VMT goal and the CARB 2022 scoping plan may become part part of the influence of the next target setting process that'll happen for SCAG and other MPOs in 2026. So as part of a larger discussion on SB 375 reform that I'll highlight a little bit later. The second theme that we heard from individual comments was variations of questioning SCAG's inclusion of roadway projects within the plan and request to allocate funding and further prioritize active transportation, transit, and other modes. So in response to those comments, we highlighted the fact that the draft plan included $38 billion for active transportation, $385 billion for transit and passenger rail investments, which together accounted for over half of the plan's expenditures. And then since some of the comments were critiquing just the detail of roadway projects within the project list, we clarified the fact that non-automobile projects like investments in active transportation typically can't be modeled directly and therefore required less detail within the project list and are underrepresented in the project list. So they kind of come in buckets and summaries instead of the individualized detail that we provide on roadway projects. So it makes the project list seem more skewed towards roadways than is true in the actual investments in the plan. So in terms of how are we responding to all those comments? Every single one of the over 1,800 comments, staff have prepared a written response, which will be documented and included in the appendices of the final public participation and consultation technical report, which again will be available in advance of the April 4th Regional Council meeting. And the staff are currently rerunning the model with updates to get the final performance data and update any related analysis in the plan. And staff are also applying many minor changes, like I mentioned, to the text and adding additional clarification where needed. And I want to point out in some, these proposed edits and revisions to the draft do not change the direction, the priorities, or the focus of the plan. Most of them are cleanup. But I do want to highlight for you the more notable changes of how the proposed final plan will differ from the draft. This includes a revision to the mobility goal, some project adjustments, a change to the forecasted regional development pattern, the addition of SCS consistency language, and then some minor edits to regional planning policies and implementation strategies. And then lastly, some modeling enhancements and improvements. So first, Caltrans had suggested a modification to our mobility goal to refer to an integrated multimodal transportation network instead of robust. This aligns with some of the language used in CTP 2050 and is consistent with our original intent of the goal. So we have applied this change. For transportation projects, there were a total of 95 requested modifications out of the thousands of total projects. And most of these were revisions to amend the schedule or the budget of a project. So those were applied. But there are 3 new projects added since the draft plan. One in San Bernardino County, the Reimagining and Reconnecting Route 66, which is a complete streets project. In Los Angeles County, there's a high desert connector route. So 4 new commuter coaches to connect Antelope and Victor Valleys. And then another in Los Angeles County, the Rosemead Lakewood Boulevard Complete Corridor Plan, which is a transit enhancement feasibility study. So those have all been incorporated into the revised plan, the updated proposed final. Next, as a reminder, the forecasted regional development pattern in the plan reflects where we anticipate future growth to be based on information available on December 2022. That was when we completed the local data exchange process. Concluding at that time in December 2022 ensures that we consider all the jurisdictions input in the same way. But at that time in December of 2022, we were aware of 2 regionally significant development projects in northern unincorporated LA County. And then so during the draft comment period, the County of Los Angeles Planning Department provided us the updated growth data on those projects. So staff have incorporated that new housing, population, and employment into the plan based on those 2 developments, which will result in higher overall numbers for the county and the region, but as a whole does not impact any of our performance measures. No other changes were made to the development pattern. On the SCS consistency language, which is included in your packet in Appendix 2, some stakeholders had requested that SCAG clarify how TAZ or Transportation Analysis Zone data, which is for household and job forecasts that we use to develop, communicate, and model the plan outcomes. They wanted clarification on how this should be understood and how it can or cannot be used to assess consistency with the sustainable community strategy. I do want to highlight here that as a reminder, in the statute, Government Code 65080, it's clear that the SCS does not supersede local land use authority. Local land use decision-making stays with the jurisdiction. But we wanted to provide this clarification language just on what consistency means with the SCS. In terms of what's in your packet, though, I do want to highlight a couple of adjustments. That's the italicized text here, which will be changing the C chapter 3 and just broadening that to C chapter 3 for additional examples. And then the insertion following one sentence from that such considerations may constitute an appropriate basis for a local jurisdiction to determine that a plan or a project is consistent with Connect SoCal. So this new SCS consistency language will be added into the plan in 3 areas: in the main document, in the supplemental section, in the growth and forecast technical report, and in the demographic and growth forecast technical report, and the land use and communities technical report. That's where this information is discussed. So we want to make sure that the consistency language is available anywhere this TAZ data is being discussed. So the next few slides highlight changes to the regional planning policies and implementation strategies. And although these are more just nuanced clarifications and revisions, because these were directly developed under the leadership of the SCAG policy committees, I want to elevate these changes for your attention. And so the specific edits are included in the agenda packet starting on packet page 21. So to start, we're clarifying vulnerable road users for the complete streets and safety policy. For one of the transit and multimodal integration policies, we're modifying extreme weather conditions to more directly point to climate change. The sustainable development policy, that is one that is being removed, and that's just because the SCS consistency language more fully articulates SCAG's perspective on the consistency with the forecasted regional development pattern. We are applying edits to reflect the economic role of agriculture for the natural and agricultural lands preservation policy. And for climate resilience, we're clarifying that what the planning support is for. And then tourism, we're applied a clarification that local agencies play a role in reducing the use of cars. So for implementation strategies, as a reminder, this is intended actions or areas where SCAG as an agency can lead partner support to support implementation of the plan. And we'll be broadly clarifying in the text that any reference to other responsible parties is not exhaustive. We know that there's a lot of different players that help with implementation of the plan. So the listing in the plan is not exhaustive. For specific changes for these first 2, for the transit multimodal integration and for the priority development areas, we're modifying the verb to acknowledge the fact that most of the responsible parties, including SCAG, do not directly build housing. So it's more of a support, or we support the development of housing. For natural and agricultural lands, we are making some clarifications to nuances requested by commenters, so clarifying that ramp is voluntary and including protection of wetlands. And then same for climate resilience, to not just refer to new construction, but retrofitting of existing structures as well. And then these last 3 strategy changes noted on the slide, for broadband, the removal of EV charging is just to reflect the limited applicability of that overall strategy to EV charging specifically. The UBM is a cleanup to reference the pandemic response instead of COVID as the virus. And then lastly, workforce development. We've shifted to using the more standard term of living wage instead of developing a specific definition for family supporting. So the last notable change that I want to elevate is not a change to the plan itself, really. It's not amending any investments or strategies, but these modeling changes will impact overall plan performance outcomes and analysis. And again, I want to reiterate that based on updated preliminary results, I can confirm that we are still meeting the 2035 GHG emission reduction target of 19% with the plan, and that the high level performance between the draft and final plan is overall consistent. So for the transportation model, we applied enhancements to better reflect near-term improvements in transit for the LA Metro Next Gen and for Metrolink Score, which will improve transit performance for both the baseline and the plan. So both with or without the plan, it's going to improve the performance results. For our scenario planning model, which we rely on for a number of the co-benefit analyses, staff and stakeholders noticed some counterintuitive results from the SPM conservation model outputs. So we refined some of the underlying data and calculation to better reflect the outcomes for plan implementation. And then lastly, there were some updated model inputs, like on auto operating costs, bike lane density, highway network, and updating passenger forecasts from Ontario Airport. So overall, between the draft and final plan, overall, the last few weeks have been busy for staff in applying all of these changes to the text in the main document, the technical reports, map updates. This is a listing of all the things really that are changing between the draft and final plan. I do want to highlight that based on feedback from CARB, we are removing 2 of the quantified GHG emission reduction strategies. This isn't impacting any of the plan investments or strategies, but rather we won't be seeking to get credit for these strategies for our GHG emission reduction. And in the plan specifically, this is only going to impact the listing of these strategies in the performance monitoring technical report. And again, we are meeting the target without these, and that's why we were complied with removing those. But again, this does reflect a bigger tension that we're having with CARB and why we're elevating SB 375 reform as one of the topics that need future discussion. So in the over 1,800 comments, there were some that could not be meaningfully addressed in the direct edits or changes to the plan. These first 3 here can be addressed with further discussion with stakeholders. The first relates to overall process improvements, like our development schedule, how we work with stakeholders, and requests for how we can improve for the 2028 cycle. So after the adoption of this plan, again, we take a break for about a month and then we start with the next plan. So that's when we'll look at how can we improve for the next cycle. The next 2 relate to the applicability of SCAG's designations of priority equity communities and priority development areas and how they are applied in other programs. So those will be addressed in the context of those specific programs, like how they may be used in future grant applications. But there weren't any edits necessary to the plan to address those comments. The other issues that need further discussion and policy direction beyond this plan cycle are areas for which we received either conflicting or opposing input, or just highlighted, again, the tensions in regional planning and that need some further discussion. Some of these are addressed in, and it's noted in the staff report, are addressed in some of the plans that we have in the implementation strategies for how we work through some of these challenges. But it's the comprehensive sustainable freight planning, how we're addressing VMT increases from roadway capacity increasing projects, how we're aligning growth and regional resilience, how can we as a region support the clean energy transition, how are we ensuring equity in the transition to user fees, how we can identify the needs and strategies for housing infrastructure investments, and like I've mentioned several times, reforming SB 375. So now I'm going to turn it to my colleague Karen Calderon to provide an overview of PIR.
Good morning. My name's Karen Calderon, and I am the project manager for the Program Environmental Impact Report, the cycle. And we've heard all about the plan, and I'm going to share a little bit about the environmental component. As you're aware, preparation of the plan triggers the California Environmental Quality Act. And since 2012, we've been meeting our CEQA requirements through a program level environmental impact report. And I want to emphasize on the word program because this is not your typical project level EIR with the site plan and all of the details. This is really much higher level environmental impact report at a regional scale, 6 counties, large geographic area, long-term time frame. So these concepts really permeate across the way we do our analysis, our mitigation measures, and our conclusions. I'm going to give you a quick overview of our public outreach process. Ooh, this computer wants to restart. No, not right now. Okay. Good. Talk about improper timing. Okay. Public process at the core of the CEQA public outreach process. Since the beginning, we have leveraged and created opportunities to engage with various stakeholders. We really try to go above and beyond our CEQA requirements and those of Assembly Bill 52. Our motto was to outreach early, often, and with a purpose. And attachment 1 in your staff report summarizes all of our public outreach efforts to date. And we took all of that input and our public comments into consideration when we released the draft back in November for a 65-day public comment period. And today I'm here to talk about what we heard and how that culminated into the proposed final. So there's 3 components to the proposed final PIR. And what we're doing really is adding 2 new chapters to the draft. And I want to underscore this as a key difference between the plan and the final. We do not replace the draft, we just add to it. So our response to comments chapter is a new chapter, and our clarifications and revisions chapter is where you'll find all of the revisions. The draft remains the same. So the first component is the draft. This is comprised of the executive summary, chapters 1 through 7, and 7 technical appendices. This is 14,000 pages, and it's as published on our website on November 9th, so not new information. And since the close of the comment period, we've been working on the next 2 chapters. The response to comments chapter is where you'll find a copy of all of the comments received and responses to each of those comments. And we believe we got a really good response. We had a robust CEQA review process. We received 33 comment letters and 700 unique comments. We heard from a large range of commenters, including sovereign nations, state agencies, federal agencies, lots of organizations, and we got really good input. We got suggestions to revise some of our analysis, add new analysis, tweak our mitigation measures, but none of the comments raised any fatal CEQA flaws, which is what you want to hear. The comments were similar to what we've seen in previous cycles. The recurring themes were very similar, and we addressed those through master responses. We developed 6 of them, and their details are in your staff reports, so I am not going to go over all of those details today, but I do want to give you 2 quick highlights. The most common CEQA topics raised were mitigation measures and alternatives. And this is not a surprise. We've heard a lot of different, sometimes conflicting input, but all the comments were within the depth and breadth of what we've seen in previous cycles, and on par with what you see in a lot of CEQA large-scale documents. We also received a lot of requests for additional analysis at a project or local level. And we explain why such analysis is not appropriate or required for a programmatic level, as there will be subsequent environmental documents for a lot of these projects. The final component is Chapter 9, clarifications and revisions chapters. And this is where you will find all of the strikeout underlined revisions to the draft. We organized this into 3 categories. The first summarizes all of the changes to the plan. So this is everything Sarah just went over. The second category is revisions from comments specifically on the PEIR. And then lastly, staff initiated clarifications or revisions. And after we've compiled all of these, we need to analyze the changes to the draft to ensure that there is no means trigger recirculation. So CEQA has a whole checklist that we go through one by one to make sure, using substantial evidence that no need for recirculation is required. And we've done that analysis, and determined that the revisions do not affect the conclusions, the analysis remains the same, and recirculation is not required. There is some additional CEQA required information, the mitigation and monitoring report, findings of fact, and statement of overriding considerations. These will live in exhibits outside of the PIR, but they are used to support the regional council's decision-making related to the PIR. Again, this is not new information. It's really a consolidated version of the analysis and conclusions that are already in the PIR. So there's more details on that in your staff report, but you'll also be able to see those as exhibits in the agenda packet for next month's RC meeting, pending, of course, your recommendation today. That completes my presentation, and I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Karen. So today, staff are seeking 2 actions from the joint policy committees. One is for the PIR to recommend that the regional council certify the PIR. And the second is that the recommendation that the regional council approve the proposed final Connect SoCal 2024. Then the next steps after today are to release the proposed final PIR on March 25th, 2024, which is 10 days prior to the intended certification date, which is 2 steps above and beyond CEQA requirements. And then we anticipate posting the proposed final Connect SoCal 2024, all of the documents and all the related technical reports in advance of the April 4th Regional Council meeting, most likely on March 28th. Then on April 4th, we would seek the certification of the final PIR by the Regional Council prior to approving adoption of Connect SoCal 2024 at the same Regional Council meeting. Then subsequent to and pending those regional council actions, SCAG would file the CEQA notice of determination, and the SCAG would submit the final plan to federal and state regulatory agencies. But before we seek your action, I'd like to turn it back to Kome for his remarks.
Well, thank you, Karen and Sarah, for those presentations. Members of the JPC, I think without question, I feel very privileged and proud to be here today with you, because this is a combination of work that we all have been working on, not just staff, but our stakeholders, as you saw in the presentation, but also this 3 policy committees and the regional council. The leadership of the board has been part of this process that's gotten us to this point over the last 3.5 years. And so it's a combination of the totality of the work in the region. And I think it's something we are proud of, and hopefully you have a sense of pride as well as you review this, and we hope you will, in fact, approve this for the board to the regional council to approve. I wanted to go back to the topics of further discussion between the PIR and the RTPSES itself. You should have noted that we got 2,500 unique comments, which is, for me, is a good testament to active participation by folks around the region, both public and private, involved in this process. And some of the questions that were raised were targeted towards things that we couldn't quite handle in this plan. But as we said before, this is a milestone. It sort of conditions work that we need to do into the future. And this list of items, I think, sort of compels beginning to focus on some of the work we're going to do in the future. Some of them are included in the plan as implementation strategies that we will work on. And some of these will also build into the next plan in 2028, since we call this party every 4 years. So you will be back here 2028. I want to start with the comprehensive freight planning program. This is something that we had worked on before. The SCAG has always been the lead in defining the conversation around freight, because we're in that space where we can bring the region together between the ports, the Inland Empire, and spaces in between to make sure that we're addressing freight in a comprehensive way. We haven't done that in about 10 years, it seems like. So we're at work right now trying to raise resources to do this comprehensive freight analysis, because over the last few years, as you would have noted, there's been changes, drastic changes in the landscape for freight, including the e-commerce that everybody is very much familiar with, and various other changes. So it compels us to have this larger conversation about freight. It's beyond this plan. The other issue that's come up that's become a real big friction point, and Sarah alluded to it, has to do with highway capacity enhancing projects in the plan. We have a multimodal plan. Our region is multimodal. I think we distract ourselves by having these arguments as to whether or not highways should be built ever again. I don't think that's the question. By far, the largest mobility element that we have in our region is people driving their cars, and that's not going to change in a long time. What we are proposing in the plan, and you will see very strongly, is that we develop a transit backbone in this plan, and this plan is actually set up to do that. If you stop to look at the investments in the plan, half of our investments in the plan is actually for maintaining and operating the things we already have, which includes our highway system, our transit systems, and bike and ped facilities. So that's a very strong case for fixing it first and maintaining what we already have so that we can have sustainability and resiliency in the system. The other half of the investments for capacity enhancement projects, most of those are actually investing in transit and active transportation. And there is some investment there for highways, but it's not the majority of our capacity investment. There is a necessity to invest in our highway systems where we have gaps, where we have not completed the systems that we envisioned that we would have before. If we are, in fact, to spend resources on setting up a pricing system that allows us to use our systems more efficiently, we need to complete some of these gaps. And that work is going on in areas that are newer in the region. So I think we need to sort of clarify that this is not it's not a highway only type investment, and that's come up. I just want to make sure that we understand that. We've also talked in this region about this issue of VMT mitigation. VMT mitigation is important. And part of that is what we're doing on the transit side and how we count for VMT emissions or VMT growth that's on the natural. With economic activity, with population growth, VMT will naturally grow. What we're talking about is how do we reduce VMT per capita? And the one way to do that is our investment in transit and active transportation, such that even if you have a car, you don't necessarily need to drive it all the time. And so you have that choice. And so this plan is really proposing to create the opportunity for choice on different modes in our region, such that it's not so much that you don't need a car or you shouldn't have a car. It's such that even if you have a car, you don't need it all the time for your mobility, especially on the short trips that can be addressed either with transit or with active transportation by walking or biking. The other one, so I'm not going to talk through all 7 of them, but I just wanted to pick some things out. This plan specifically focused on housing more than the last 3 plans that we have done. This is the 4th of the RTP-SESs that this region has done under SB 375. In this particular plan, given the discussions we've been having over the last 3 years about housing, it was impossible to not make a case for housing in the plan. So for the first time in the regional transportation plan, we have a housing element in our plan, and it focuses on it because there is in fact a connection between transportation and housing. The plan really intends that we would use, the intention was that we would use our REAP resources to begin to make the case for how collectively in this region we start to focus on helping our jurisdictions on housing production. And then lastly, the issue of 375 reform it's been before us, it's been on the plate for the last, I say for the last 6 years. We've been talking about it because we've known since actually after the second plan, we knew that there was a need to tweak 375 because we've sort of outgrown what the intentions were with technology, with resources that we've seen around the table. This 4th RTP-SES makes the case, and the tension that I think Sarah talked about with the state, that tension is well-intentioned. It's really just trying to fit within the existing laws, 375, what we now know to be difficult to fit within. And so for us to not be able to account for EV penetration in our region as part of reducing our GHG is a very difficult pill to swallow, but we're walking away from that. And so this compels us to start to talk about, and we're working with other regions. It's not just SCAG that's thinking this way. Most MPOs are thinking the same way, that we need to come back with a proposal to tweak 375. And you will probably see that come through in some of your deliberations over the next year or so. So I just want to stop there and touch on these future discussion items. It's not so much that the plan doesn't want to deal with them. The plan cannot deal with them. They're beyond the scope of the RTP-SES itself, but they're relevant to the conversation around the RTP-SES. And just want to also sort of sensitize you to these discussions coming forward over the next few years. And we'll be glad to take questions, but there might be a need to do public comments before we come back to the board.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
We have one card that's been passed to the president.
Call on Amy Boder, County of Los Angeles. Welcome, Ms. Boder.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Bodek. I am the Director of Regional Planning for the County of Los Angeles. I'm essentially your 89th city, dealing with all the unincorporated areas of LA County. Some of the, what I'd like to say today has already been covered, but we really wanted to say thank you for the great working relationship we've had with the SCAG team. We submitted our original comments in December of 2022. We were in the midst of updating our draft housing element, which I'm sure all of you can share the joys of doing that. And we did have several development projects that were on the cusp of entitlements or were in litigation, and we're waiting for litigation to conclude. So we did let SCAG staff know at the time that while we provided our initial comments, we wanted to leave it open for future updates. And SCAG, your staff, actually agreed to that, and we worked very closely with them once we got our housing element certified, yay, and once we adopted a couple of area plans, and once we got some entitlements locked down. So we were able to make some revisions to, as it was stated in the slideshow, some regionally significant development projects, and we greatly appreciate the support. And we ask that you recommend the full council approve this plan. Thank you.
Yeah, do we have any other public comments?
Mr. President, we do have some comments online,
Yes, okay.
not in person.
Call.
First comment is from Move LA.
Move LA.
Yes. Hi. Am I able to be seen
Yes.
and heard? Fantastic.
Yes, Eli.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Eli Littman on behalf of Move LA. We are a nonprofit advocacy organization interested in affordable housing, climate change, and public transportation. The chair, we've spoken about green hydrogen, and I also serve now with your executive director on the SB 125 Transit Transformation Task Force. So deeply engaged in this, we actually hosted a presentation from your team on Connect SoCal, and we invited all of our folks to participate in that. So we're very interested in this. I'd like to just bring up the three things for that we brought up at our presentation and in our comments, but that I'd like to highlight. One is population. The report sort of recognizes or plans for more people in our region, which I believe is prudent, but also imprudent. in the sense, in fact, in the last couple of years, we have seen a decline in our population in Southern California. And so I believe that it is important in this plan and especially in the next plan that we consider alternative scenarios where we either have a population that levels off or a population that potentially declines and what the impact is on that. And so, you know, obviously, I know how long these things take to prepare, and a lot of these things are lagging, but this does see an increase in the population by 2050, which may or may not happen. So I think it's very important for the staff and for this board to consider that we may have population that levels off. Second is pricing. There is a lot put in this on achieving that 19% on road pricing. And while that is fantastic and we would support that, we're not seeing any movement in the region or even at the state level in a very at the pace that is necessary to achieve those to start pricing in the way that is anticipated in the report. And so we're very concerned that there isn't some urgency around that by the local transportation commissions, by SCAG or by the state. And that leaves a quite large hole in the plan in terms of mitigation. And so that's really something that needs to be thought about. And then lastly, and this kind of broke after the public comment period was open. But unfortunately, and this goes to Mr. Ajise's comments, you know, the scoring that points, that system that SCAG has established for these projects, for what gets funded and what gets prioritized in terms of funding regionally for CMAQ and other federal funding programs is really problematic.
Time?
Time is up, sir.
County. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that there was a. Did you
3-minute time
publish
limit,
a time
yes.
limit? Okay.
Yes, we do.
All right.
3 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Richard Lambros.
Well, good morning, SCAG officers, regional council members, and committee members. I appreciate this opportunity to address you this morning. My name is Rich Lambros. I'm the managing director with the Southern California Leadership Council, here today to express our strong support for the final draft RTP-SCS as presented by staff and inclusive of the final staff recommendations that you heard today. Want to begin by thanking SCAG staff and leaders. We've been, our organization, we're singularly focused on economic development, job creation, and quality of life. If you're focused on those items, there's no better place to engage than the RTP-SCS process, since this plan very much impacts our quality of life as well as our economy here in Southern California. We've been engaged since the 2012 process, and each 4-year cycle, I want to commend SCAG and staff and leaders. The process gets better and better, and I think this time the best yet at early engagement and taking of input from broad stakeholders and making sure that issues or concerns were talked through and worked out well ahead of where we are today. As a result of that, you've got a plan before you that we think is very important in that it creates $2 of economic benefit for every $1 of investment and creates over 480,000 annual new jobs in our region based on the transportation and other competitiveness investments within the plan. It also addresses housing, and we particularly appreciate the work that's been done at length to try to assure that each of you as local government leaders retains the flexibility and at the local government level to still find the housing projects that make sense for you in a way that they can still be in alignment with the goals and objectives of the RTP-SCS. That's an important inclusion in the plan, and we appreciate SCAG's great efforts to work on that. And we certainly appreciate the $750 billion in transportation investment, of which we all know our region greatly needs. So again, want to just really thank SCAG for the good work. We want to thank you as officers and each committee member, because we know you've all been engaged as well along the way. And I do want to thank our fellow stakeholders, the volume and really technical application of great comments all the way throughout the process. So with that said, we strongly again urge your support and a recommendation to the Regional Council for approval of the final draft RTP-SCS as presented by staff and inclusive of staff's final recommendations today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Chris Wilson.
Thank you and good morning, Chair and members. My name is Chris Wilson with the Los Angeles County Business Federation, known as BizFed. We wish to express our heartfelt thanks to members and staff for the robust and comprehensive work on the RTP SCS draft that is before you today. BizFed supports the Joint Policy Committee's draft plan for a number of reasons, one of which is the draft plan supports housing production and affordability. At a time when we must think creatively and innovatively to produce more housing, the Connect SoCal draft plan before you helps to further meet our housing goals while adhering to the population demand of access to housing and homeownership. We appreciate the partnership and conversations over the tenure of this draft plan. And once again, thank you again for your openness to hearing the suggestions and comments from the business community. And we urge your support of Connect SoCal's PEIR and the overall draft plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Benjamin L.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Benjamin Lopez. I'm Policy Director with the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. And we want to thank SCAG for digital support for the hard work in crafting the comprehensive plan and prioritizing public input and transparency. And we want to urge the council to approve the RTP SES as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Nairi Bagdasarian.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much. My name is Nairi Bagdasarian, and I am the Director of Public Policy for the San Gabriel Valley Economic Partnership, echoing the many, many thanks to staff and for your hard work in ensuring that this comprehensive plan and its openness to hearing the suggestions from the business community and all stakeholders. So thank you so much. I know how much work goes into this. And I'm here today to express the partnership's support for the Joint Policy Committee's approval of the draft plan as presented by staff today. We appreciate that per the plan's economic analysis, it shows that the benefit for every dollar invested is doubled, which is expected to bring $1.5 trillion in economic benefits to the region over the 25-year life cycle of the plan. And then also addressing that housing is critically needed so that we meet housing goals and help assure that more of the working population can receive the many benefits of home ownership. And finally, the identification of $65 billion in projects to improve the region's critical goods movement sector. So thank you so much for all of this.
Thank you.
Last speaker, Carlos Rodriguez, and then there's some other raised hands by members, which we can address when member comments are taken.
Yes, good morning, Carlos Rodriguez. Speaking on behalf of the Building Industry Association, Southern California. This morning, we'd like to urge support of Connect SoCal and express our appreciation to the SCAG staff, the Joint Policy Committee, and the Regional Council. We appreciate the openness to hearing the suggestions from the business community and other stakeholders, and also sharing our belief that the RTP SCS should serve to stimulate economic growth and bring economic benefits to Southern California residents. We are looking forward to working with SCAG with respect to addressing the dire housing challenges and crisis that we're dealing with in our region. The draft support of greater housing production and hence affordability with the assurance of local control to better access local needs and concerns is critical. The revised language regarding housing is critically needed so we can meet housing goals and help assure that more of our working population can receive the many benefits of home ownership. It's also important to note that the plan's generation of more than 480,000 annual new jobs over the 25-year horizon of the RTP SCS, and thanks to the plan's transportation investments and improved regional competitiveness. We look forward again to working with SCAG and member cities to ensure there is access to attainable housing at all socioeconomic levels through good public policy, such as represented today and proposed to you for consideration today. Again, we would urge support of Connect SoCal. Thank you.
Thank you. It's the last public speaker. Okay, now entertain comments from members of the Joint Policy Committee. Just a reminder, if a member of the body is attending remotely but not at the location specified on the agenda, may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. I'll start with comments. First in-person speakers, Kurt Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I just want to, first of all, congratulate all of us here, not only on the joint committee meeting, but also the RC, but especially the staff who does the work. You heard about the thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. You know, it's longer than any novel we'll ever read, and we're thankful that the staff actually does it. To set the goal for Southern California, to set a vision for us to work together as counties and cities to really take care of our residents going forward. There's not a lot of 20-year active visions that are around. We're it. And all of us sit on multiple other committees and boards, knowing what the state's very aggressive goals are for different standards and rules. There's a lot of regional planning needs to be done. One of them was touched on for the new fuels, the infrastructure that we need to power our electric cars and trucks or hydrogen, whatever way you want to go. That needs to be done on a regional level. We see this especially in South Coast air quality, AQMD, and other that set the standards that we're the highest around. But to get this cabinet document, this kind of go through, this is my third evolution on this round of SCAG dealing with this. And I want to thank Comey, especially for his leadership, the whole entire team for doing it. And to know, because I've been involved in the last minute conversations, literally up until a day or two ago, to get those final amendments, to get everyone saying positive things about it is truly remarkable. Because when you do this type of document, and there's so many special interests, we're only looking out for their own, to get everyone being very positive on it, I think we should congratulate our team for doing a job well done. So thank you. With that, I'm not going to slow things down. There's other comments, but I'd like to move it whenever you're ready, as amended by staff, Mr. President.
Thank you. John Minch. Mary.
Thank you, President. Just a couple of points. Climate change was mentioned, and I would like to repeat something I've said at our policy committees before, that climate, we have to be careful. Climate is not the environment. It's a subset of the impact of ecological overshoot, which does include climate change, but it also includes other things like the loss of biodiversity and other problems. So I think we should focus on the larger problem, which is ecological overshoot, and not just climate change. I also agree with Eli Lippman's point about population. I do believe we need to be looking at steady state, stable population scenarios, or even a loss of population. A point on public transportation. I do think we should support it in a very strong way, but it's also important that public transportation investments and our expectations match reality. I just did the so-called Google Maps test for a couple of places. And if you wanted to now drive to Disneyland, it would take you 41 minutes. But if you wanted to take public transportation, it would take 2 hours and 22 minutes. If you wanted to go to the Redondo Beach Pier, driving would take 38 minutes. Public transportation would take 1 hour and 28 minutes. And if you even just wanted to go to Dodger Stadium, very close by, driving would take you 7 minutes. Public transportation would take you 36 minutes. So the reality needs to match. We need to be focused on practicality. Public transit has to compete with driving if we really want people to choose public transportation. And I think that has to be the goal. People to use public transportation, not because they have to, but because they want to. I think that also represents the true democratization of public transportation. And I think we should also be looking at the integration of, for example, autonomous vehicle technology into public transportation, not to replace private cars, but as a form of public transportation to get people point to point on demand, which is going to encourage them to use it, not because they have to, but because they want to. Also, when we look at pricing, again, keeping that in mind, pricing needs to be cannot be regressive if public transportation is to be an equal alternative. If someone doesn't have a choice and it's going to take them 3 times as long to get to a place, then we must not regressively tax people who really don't have the alternative of effective public transportation. And it can be done. Anyone who has done the Google Maps test in places like Stockholm, where I've lived before, or London, in some cases, it's actually quicker to use public transportation than it is to drive. And that has to be the goal. Sadly, MTA's stated goal is that public transportation should be at least 2.5 times or no more than 2.5 times what it takes to drive. And that's just not going to be good enough. Finally, I want to say that I've heard some comments on home ownership, and I'm very supportive of that. I think the focus on allowing people who have been excluded from home ownership in the past needs to be a big focus. I believe that we need to, as a group, look to support some of the anti-speculation housing bills that are now in the hopper in DC, but also in this session, surprisingly and happily, in Sacramento. There are a number of bills that look to deal with private equity, corporations, and hedge funds snapping up housing that makes it more difficult for real people, hardworking families, to be able to be part of the American dream. This should be something we should also focus on. Aside from that, I want to say, as Kome said, this is a milestone. Let's keep it up. And thank you, everybody, for all of your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Tanya Doby.
Good morning. I feel like I would be remiss if I were not extra grateful for the folks that did a job that I cannot even fathom. So my internal gratitude. And I just got a quick comment, not necessarily a question, in regards to consistency language. If it just a consideration, if we could insert hyperlinks when referencing other parts of the plan or the document so that there's no confusion about what's being referenced. And an example would be a reference to Chapter 3, subsection communities would potentially benefit from having a hyperlink to the specific page that was referenced. So that's it. Thank you for humoring me.
Thank you. Anybody else in person here? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a quick second to as well thank Comey, the staff, and the entire team for all the countless hours and hard work that you guys put into this. 14,000 pages. I mean, that's insane. So great job. The people are speaking. They seem to be excited with that, with everything going on. And with that, I'd like to second Supervisor Hagman's motion, please.
Okay. Anybody else in person? Yes, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Ed Wilson, City of Signal Hill. And I also want to thank staff and all the partners in this process. And it is a significant accomplishment that we are about to vote on today. I always said planning is about the future and not the past. And so by looking forward to what we're going to do, is going to help us in our development and movement of the people forward. I'm really, really excited that, we're also addressing not just sustainability, but affordability and social equity in this. I think that that's extremely important because as we all prosper, it makes our society better. I echo the comment about the autonomous vehicles. I think that that's going to be important. Of course, nothing what the future holds is still up in the air. But I will say on the next one that we might start to try to address airspace, and what I'm talking about is the airspace lower than where the planes and fly. I think that is something that we will be coming into focus. We currently address transportation based on what the past was. But we are seeing so many different things that technology is bringing us in the sense of drones and delivery of products. But that could be expanded to people as well. And so I think that we have to start looking at that. And of course, there could be battles of the rights, who has rights to that airspace and how you manage it. And I think that that's something that when in the next iteration of this, we should try to start addressing. Thank you.
Seeing nobody else's card up, I'll now entertain comments from people on Zoom. First, we'll go to City of Mission Viejo, my favorite aunt, Lucy Dunn.
If Mission Viejo could unmute your microphone.
City of Mission Viejo, Trish Kelly, Wendy Bucknam, and also Lucy Dunn.
Me that raised the hand. So first of all, I want to wish a happy birthday to Art Brown. I heard from her that today is his birthday. So happy birthday. I'm sure you're in the exact place you want to be on your birthday. I would like to, I'm not hearing him comment. He's probably blushing. I would like to also to thank you all and the staff and everybody for all the hard work that has gone into this. But I am troubled by the awkward position that we're placed in because we're being asked to recommend approval to the regional council of a proposed final Connect SoCal plan. And in the next item, asking us to recommend approval of a proposed final EIR, but we don't have these documents before us yet, and we won't have them for another 2.5 to 3 weeks. So I do appreciate that the staff report summarizes the general approach to responding to the public comments and identifies some recommended changes. This doesn't avoid the fact that we're being asked to approve documents that we don't have in hand in our possession. And to outsiders, this could give the impression that we're rubber stamping the plan. And I just want to be very careful as we go forward. So with these concerns in mind, can I ask, do you need a recommendation from the joint policy committees today? And when does the transportation conformity for the current plan lapse? And how much time are we legally bound to provide to the federal agencies to review the adopted plan?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. President, to be clear, the documents that you are recommending approval on have not changed, is why you only heard about the changes that were addressed to it. And that was what was circulated in the agenda package that you have with you. So you saw the changes that we noted in the document already. And so the main documents were circulated November 2nd. And so those documents are still standing, and there are no significant changes to that document. So there was no need to recirculate the entire package. So that's one thing to note. In terms of timing, yes, we do need approval this time around. We need to be able to get to the state, as Sarah pointed out in the timeline, submit our package to the state, and they usually take about 60 days to review and get us their approval. And we have if I recall, we do have a conformity timeline that's in June. That will lapse. So we're working, basically we're working through the entire calendar that we have in front of us to get this done. But there was no need to recirculate the entire package because the information that you are approving is the same, substantially the same as you had in the public documents that were published November 2nd.
Okay, but we don't have those EIR documents yet. And so I'm wondering, I know there's a motion on the floor, but I think I'm wondering if it might be an option to call a special meeting of this joint policy committee, the joint policy committee, right before the regional meeting on April 4th.
Member Kelly, both documents were circulated November 2nd. And there's a link in the package that you have as well to those documents.
If I may, those documents are also on SCAG's website at other locations. Yeah. So not only do the policy committee members get links to those documents in your staff report and your agenda, but they're widely available throughout SCAG's appropriate web pages.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, next is Carol Moore. Did Lucy want to talk? Lucy in the Sky with
Sorry,
Diamonds?
I thought it was unmuted. I wanted to thank that staff and all the work that went into this too. I also wanted to, we are concerned about the environment, the air. We want our air quality good, and we have to have a plan to get there. That's extremely important. But you notice that the comments that come from people, and we have a variety of views. And I appreciate it when we understand that one plan or forcing everyone into one plan. And I don't think this did. I thought Comey addressed that, and I appreciated that he showed multimodal. Hey, that speaks. But if we look at the current election, what happened? If HLA is passing, looks like it is, what is that telling us? I've spoken on this before. I don't believe people want to be forced into high density, and they have no open space, no chances to get out and move about. And I think if that's that speaks, if we don't listen to people, what they want, and I think that was voiced by others. In fact, I also thank the people who spoke previously, because I think they brought up some very excellent points of view. Thank you. And let's continue to listen to all people, make sure that all voices get heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamara Takahashi? It's not all there, sorry.
No worries.
Tamala.
Yes, I don't want to skip the line. I think there might have been someone before me, but if it's okay, since you called on me.
There it is.
Okay. Hi, yes, Tamala Takahashi, council member in Burbank. First, again, I wanted to echo the others' comments about thanking the staff for the hard work on this project. It's been this proposal, it's been a long time working on it, and it's a lot has gone into it. And I particularly appreciate the outreach to all the stakeholders and the various interests. It's really encouraging to hear so much positive support for it from different sectors that otherwise may have conflicting interests, but they all a lot of folks are supporting this proposal. So I have a couple comments and one question. First, I really wanted to thank the focus on the looking at this proposal as an investment in our future, rather than a reaction to what quote unquote we have to do, but more of an investment to folks who use this, who will be using the public transit and other ways of getting around. And also, I really like the framework of looking at it as creating a backbone for public transit and a backbone for active transit versus trying to instead overlay. So this is a backbone that's being installed inside the entire transit system. And I also really like the framework of creating choice. This is not forcing anybody out of their cars. It's not making people do things they don't want to do. Instead, it is creating a choice, and that's something that's a backbone of our culture. Is creating choice for folks to be able to move about the way that they want to. So, as a bus rider and an active transit user with my e-bike, I prefer to use the bus when I can, especially going to DTLA and Metro. So having that choice where I don't have to choose between a 45-minute car ride in traffic where it's very stressful versus a 3-hour bus ride to downtown LA. If there's an equity there, I really appreciate that framework. One other comment too is that what I've been hearing in transit discussions, and a little bit here, but it's not as much, but I just wanted to highlight it, is that there has been a conversation around trying to increase our ridership numbers. And I think that just wanted to point out that can be a little bit of a red herring, because ridership numbers is not necessarily an indication of a successful transit system. Just like we don't judge streets and the satisfaction of street usage and whether streets are done well by how many cars use the streets. We judge by how well those streets gets us to where we want to go. And so the transit system, judging ridership is a side number. It's not a main number. The main measurement is whether or not the transit system gets us to where we want to go and how quickly. And so it's more of a satisfaction number rather than the number of people who use it. Yes, numbers will go up if it's used better, but just like we have streets that don't have a lot of cars but are still very highly valued streets, we the same as with transit. So just being careful with transit numbers and ridership as being too heavily emphasized. So I just wanted to point that out. And then lastly, my question is a previous commenter mentioned HLA. It looks like it's going to be passing. And so I'm just curious from folks who are putting this program together and the proposal, when something like this passes, because HLA is a pretty big new law that's going to be in effect. How will this integrate and other laws in the future like this integrate with this plan? And do we see an impact of HLA moving forward if it passes? So again, thank you again to all the staff who put this together.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands.
See Marsha McLean.
Marsha McLean. Marsha.
Hi. Good morning. I'm going to echo what everyone else says as well and thank the staff for putting this together. I would like to congratulate the comments by Councilman John Mearsh from Beverly Hills regarding the time it takes to take public transportation and the time it takes for driving. And our city is concerned with the VMT, which punishes people for needing to drive where there are no viable public transportation options at this time that is convenient to them. We believe there needs to be a much stronger emphasis placed on advocating for public transportation dollars, especially Metrolink. And so also mentioning the HLA, you're going to be charging people apparently to drive the streets in the city of Los Angeles, but you're taking away their driving ability. And so those are my comments, and I'm hoping that in the future we can be discussing advocating for Metrolink dollars to get people out of their cars. As you know, I've been on the transportation committee for many years and keep talking about this, where if you don't give people an option to take public transportation, they're going to continue to drive and traffic is going to continue to get worse. So thank you.
Thank you. Phil Brock.
Yeah, I am listening to a couple of speakers ago and our honorable colleague from Beverly Hills talking about public transit and talking about ways to get places. I absolutely agree with John that we need to make sure that public transit competes with the automobile. But there's another point to that too. If public transit is not safe, people are not going to ride, they're going to keep using their cars. Now, I have the E line that comes to Santa Monica. I have many people who will never ride public transit again because of the behavior they see on the E line. Make our trains safe, make them a viable alternative, and people will use them. But if they're not safe, if people feel that they are going to be subjected possibly to harm on the train, that fear factor stops people from riding. And we have that all through our counties. And that has to be an emphasis. I want people having viable alternatives to using their car also. But as Mr. Mearsh says, a viable alternative is not 2.5 hours versus 40 minutes. Now look at that, 40 minutes can be hell, right? If you're going from Santa Monica to downtown LA during rush hour. But the problem is on the way back, if it takes 48 minutes to go from downtown to Santa Monica versus 20 minutes while driving 3 hours later, and they feel that they're going to be subjected to, I mean, I don't want to get graphic, but we all know the things that happen on our trains. Make the trains safe. Public safety has to be a huge element of public transportation. Now, in my city, we just added security guards on Big Blue Bus. But our security guards, we made a splash last week. We had 4 guards on at any one time for 128 buses at rush hour. And our security guards won't ride singly, which means 2 of our buses get security guards out of 128 during rush hour. That's not providing safety. And we have to do that. Metro in LA has to provide turnstiles. Metro in LA has to provide ways to keep people, that safety factor. You know, you can't keep everyone safe, but you want people to at least feel and have that perception of safety. And that has to be an integral part of our plans. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Karen Spiegel?
And I totally agree on the safety. I have sat on the Metrolink board for years, and that is Metrolink's #1 priority. We don't have as much of an issue. But I do have to say with both Metrolink, and I've been sitting on Riverside Transit Agency for several decades. Cost effective is a critical aspect. You cannot deny that if there's only a handful of riders that we should continue because taxpayers are paying for that. So what we do is you take lines and you move them to where they'll be more productive and have more ridership. So I half agree with what Tamala was saying. I think that there's a prudent on taxpayer dollars that we have to certainly look at. So when we talk about transit, it's many different elements that we have to look at. Safety is a priority. I think that's true on any transit agency. But cost effective, that's why you have a fare box recovery you have to meet. And if you don't meet it, we shouldn't be running those buses. That means there's not an interest in riding that. We have been trying to recover from COVID. I mean, many of you sit on transit agencies. We're still not there yet. And we're talking 4 years later, we're not even back to pre-COVID. Or COVID time. So, you know, it's like, how long do we keep? So we do have to keep focusing on enticing ridership. We heard about the growth aspect. Riverside County has doubled in population since 1990, and we're on the horizon to go further. I look over at Colleen Wallace over in Banning. They're just growing, and many areas in Riverside County are continuing to grow. We were one of the only counties that grew during COVID. So we will continue to grow. And if some of the other counties are losing numbers and census, we grew. So we have to be careful when we make these comments about numbers, because we have those needs. So we have to forecast on a contingency that all of us get our needs met. Riverside County may not be as big as LA, but we are the 4th largest. So we're not too, well, we are a lot behind, but you know, okay. We do good for ours. Okay. And the other thing is being Riverside County, you know, you guys are talking Santa Monica, LA. We're coming from Riverside County. And I am still very concerned about VMT because we have commuters. You guys wave these flags in Orange County and LA County to come work here. And we have a tremendous amount of commuters that come and work in your areas, which is not what I'm talking about, but you're penalizing when we go through this VMT. So we have to be careful. You want us as workers, then don't penalize our workers. So these are the kind of things that we have to be holistic and look at as a whole county rather than singling out certain areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Meister?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to talk about 2 points, and one is the complete streets and safety. I think we also have to be looking at last mile and active transportation and the other modes, the modes of transportation like e-scooters and the delivery robots. These are things that are, you know, maybe they're helping people get from point A to point B, but they're not necessarily safe. And they are, and these are things that I think we need to look at as well in the future. And then to agree with Councilmember Mirisch on climate resilience, I think we do have to show our support for the environment in general and not just talk about climate resilience, but really about the environment, which is, you know, should be an important, as important a focus for us as building housing, because without the environment, there's not going to be a need for supporting growth in the counties. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any further? That's it. Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the floor.
Mr. President, if I may interrupt with a request or for your consideration, that is, these are 2 related items. You've got Connect SoCal on the PEIR and then the recommendation to the RC for the program itself. You also have a minutes agenda item. And since there's such a large body, we may want to just,
I'll amend my motion to include both. Thank you.
thank you Supervisor Hagman.
My second will include both as well.
Thank you. You do need to ask for public comment on the
Yes.
minutes and then comments from the body if there are any on the minutes.
Okay, do we have any comments on the recommendation certified Connect SoCal final program environmental report?
The last question would be for comments on the minutes, either from the public or from members of the policy committees.
No raised hands.
We don't have any, so
None?
right on.
So roll call, please, on all three items.
Members, I'll first proceed by calling on all the CHD members, followed by EEC and TC. Cindy Allen.
Aye.
Valeria Mezcua.
Aye.
Gary Boyer.
Yes.
Drew Boyles.
Yes.
Wendy Bucknam.
Yes.
Don Caskey. Don Caskey. Tanya Doby.
Yes.
Deborah Dorsporada. Deborah Dorsporada. Keith Ike.
Yes.
Bob Engler.
I'm sorry.
Noted.
I did.
Noted a yes for Dorsporada. Thank you. Bob Engler.
Yes.
Wayman Furman.
Aye.
Wayman, thank you. Margaret Finley.
Yes.
Claudia Frometa. Marshall Goodman.
Aye.
Mark Henderson.
Aye.
Cecilia Hupp.
Yes.
C.
Linda Johnson.
Yes.
Kathleen Kelly.
Yes.
Tammy Kim. Lauren Clayman. Matt Levere.
Yes.
Jed Liano. Carlos Leon. Annie Marshall.
Yes.
Andrew Maciel.
Yes.
Casey McKeon.
Yes.
John Mirish.
Yes.
Joseph Moravito.
Yes.
Suzette Mullins.
Yes.
Joseph Murphy.
Yes.
George Nava. Ariel Pay.
Yes.
Freddie Puza.
Yes.
Gabriel Reyes.
Yes.
Rocky Rhodes.
Yes.
Sunny Santinez.
Yes.
Andrew Sarega. David Shapiro.
Yes.
Becky Shevlin.
Yes.
Becky, thank you. Mary Solorio.
Yes.
Helen Tran.
Yes.
Mark Warnick.
Aye.
Aquanetta Warren.
Yes.
Frank Yokoyama.
Yes.
Frank Zarunian.
Yes.
I will now call on the EEC membership. Damon Alexander. Ana Beltran.
Yes.
Phil Brock.
Yes.
That was a Phil Brock for yes.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Ana
Still.
Beltran, I just wanted to confirm, was that Ana Beltran who said yes?
Yes.
We have you scheduled to be here in person, not remotely.
Paisley's aye.
I will be calling on TC shortly.
I'm at SCAG in Imperial County.
You're at Imperial County? Okay, thank you for confirming.
Thank you.
Margaret Clark,
Yes.
Robert Copeland, Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Ned Davis,
Ed Davis, yes.
Rick Dennison,
Dennison, yes.
Carmen Hernandez,
Yes.
Sherry Horn,
Horn, yes.
Britt Huff,
Huff, yes.
Dan Kalmick,
Aye.
Joe Kalmick,
Yes.
Stephen Leash,
Yes.
Elaine Litster,
Yes.
Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Lauren Meister,
Yes.
Oscar Ortiz,
Yes.
Luis Blancarte,
Blancarte, yes.
Daniel Ramos,
Ramos, yes.
Deborah Robertson, Janet Sanchez Palacios, Nick Schultz, Jennifer Stark,
Yes.
Ali Taj,
Yes.
Tamala Takahashi,
Yes.
Connor Trout,
Yes.
Stephanie Virgin, Dale Welty,
Yes.
Edward Wilson.
Yes.
I will now proceed with the TC membership. Adele Andrade Stadler,
Yes.
Elizabeth Becerra, Brian Bergson, Russell Betts,
Yes.
Daniel Brotman, Art Brown,
Aye.
Ross Chan,
Chan, yes.
Denise Delgado,
Yes.
Jonathan Dumitru,
Yes.
John Dutray,
Yes.
James Gaisley,
Aye.
Jason Gibbs,
Aye.
Kurt Hagman, Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Lauren Hughes.
Aye.
Was that a yes for Lauren Hughes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Mike Judge,
Yes.
Fred Young, Trish Kelly,
Abstain?
noted, thank you. Linda Krupa,
Yes.
Bridget Lewis, Malcolm Lilienthal,
Yes.
Richard Loa,
Yes.
Clint Lorimore,
Aye.
Ken Mann,
Ken Man, yes.
Steve Manos,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Larry McCallan,
Yes.
Marsha McLean,
Yes.
Dennis Michael,
Yes.
Linda Molina,
Yes.
Carol Moore,
Aye.
Ara Najarian,
Yes.
Maria Nava Frolic,
Yes.
Frank Navarro,
Yes.
Sharona Nazarian,
Yes.
Gil Rebollar,
Yes.
Ed Reese,
Yes.
Celeste Rodriguez,
Yes.
Crystal Reese,
Yes.
Ali Saleh,
Saleh, yes.
Tim Sandoval,
Yes.
Zach Schwank,
Yes.
Marty Siminoff,
Yes.
Ward Smith,
Yes.
Jose Luis Solache,
Yes.
Wes Speak, Karen Spiegel, Cynthia Sternquist,
Yes.
Michael Vargas,
Yes.
Donald Wagner,
Wagner, aye.
Colleen Wallace,
Yes.
Alan Wapner,
Yes.
Thomas Wong,
Yes.
Jeff Wood.
Yes.
Mr. President, the motion for item 1, 2, and the consent calendar passes with 109 votes, 0 no votes, and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I just
Mr.
received a request
Chair, this-
from Liz Becerra, who would like to make sure her vote is a yes, if we will accept it.
Yes.
Bergson, can you
Sis Bergson, was that also a yes?
show me as a yes vote?
Yes, we'll reflect that as well.
Our internet, it's.
Yeah.
The count is 111
One
and 1
abstention.
abstention.
I want to thank everybody for your paying close attention to what was going on today and approving this. We'll conclude today's meeting with a special tribute. SCAG Regional Council Member John Asuncion passed away last week after a long and heroic battle with cancer. John served the agency for more than 17 years and was a beloved member of the SCAG family. Our hearts go out to his family and colleagues at this difficult time. As we adjourn, we'll take a moment of silence to remember John and send our regards to those who knew and loved him. Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we got it.